Good evening, everyone. My name is Ware Harmon, and I'm the Executive Director of Town Hall Seattle. On behalf of our staff and our friends at the LA Bay Book Company, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this evening's presentation of Ilsa Govan, Tilman Smith, and Karena Hooks. As we get underway, I want to acknowledge that our institution stands on the unceded traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, and particularly the Duwamish. We thank them for our continuing use of the natural resources of their ancestral homeland. We're very glad you've all joined us for this evening's virtual event. Presentation will run around 60 minutes, including Q&A. And to submit your questions, once we get to the Q&A, please enter meet.ps/racial justice or scan the QR code right now on the screen with your smartphone. The link will be in the chat, and it should be there later on as you're ready to submit your own questions. And I encourage you to do that throughout the program. We can't guarantee we'll get to every question, but we'll try to get to as many as possible. And you can do your part by keeping yours concise and in the form of a question. For those who would like to view the program with closed captions, click the CC button in the bottom right corner of the video player. Town Hall is adding new events and podcasts every day. Upcoming programs include a Disability Employment Awareness Month panel on advocating for accessible, equitable workplaces, co-presented with Epiphanies of Equity, and an exciting talk with New Yorker journalist Jelani Cobb on the matter of Black lives, presented by Seattle Arts and Lectures as part of their journalism series. Beyond that, we've got live in-building appearances coming with Neil Stevenson and at least 4 more shows in this year's absolutely stellar Earshot Jazz lineup. You should also know that tonight's speakers will return to Town Hall next month to conduct a virtual workshop on white body privilege. That workshop is free and open to all, and you can visit our website to sign up. Please be sure to sign our email list generally to get the latest updates as more programs are added throughout the season. Town Hall's work is made possible through your support and the support of our sponsors. It's part of our Arts and Culture series at Town Hall. This event is supported by For Culture, the City of Seattle's Department of Arts and Culture, and Washington State's Arts Commission. As you likely know, though, Town Hall is at heart a member-supported organization, and I want to thank all of our members tuning in this evening. If you share Town Hall's vision of a community strengthened through questions of civics, science, and culture, please consider supporting us tonight by donating or by becoming a member yourself. And one last point, you will absolutely want to go deeper into tonight's topic, and the best way I can imagine to do that is to purchase your own copy of the author's book. Please use the link in the chat below to pick up your copies through LA Bay Book Company, and buying locally through LA Bay really matters. Do it now while it's hot on your mind rather than later from some faceless multinational corporation. And with that, off we go. Ilsa Govan is a facilitator, consultant, writer, and social justice activist. As co-founder of Cultures Connecting, she has led conversations about racial equity at workshops and conferences across the country. Before Cultures Connecting, Ilsa worked as an equity and race specialist for Seattle Public Schools, where she was tasked with addressing institutional racism in a major civic institution. Ilsa is deeply invested in examining how her own identity influences her interactions with others, and particularly through the lens of privilege and oppression. Ilsa is the co-author with Caprice Hollins of 2015's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Strategies for Facilitating Conversations on Race. Tilman Smith has been an educator and a project manager for over 35 years, serving as a teacher, administrator, college instructor, caucus facilitator, trainer, and coach. She's facilitated workshops throughout the country on racial justice, white privilege, internalized sexism, and internalized white superiority. Currently, Tilman partners with government, educational, and nonprofit agencies as a race-based caucus organizer and trainer and executive coach. She earned her bachelor's degree in French and history from the University of Colorado and a master's in human development at Pacific Oaks College Northwest. Karena Hooks is a leader, organizer, transformational coach, mentor, and educator with over 20 years of experience working with individuals and organizations at all stages of life. Her roots run deep in the fields of social justice, organizational development and leadership, and community-based systems change for nonprofit, non-governmental, public, and private sectors globally. She serves as adjunct faculty at Columbia University's School of Social Work online program, and was recently featured on King 5's award-winning series, Facing Race. Govan and Smith's new book, What's Up with White Women? Unpacking Sexism and White Privilege in Pursuit of Racial Justice, is the subject of this evening's presentation. Please join me in welcoming Karena Hooks, Ilsa Govan, and Tilman Smith.
Thank you.
You know, those intros, if you're a little bit nervous when you start,
let me tell you, you're a lot nervous after those bios. I just want to say thank you first and foremost to Tilman and to Ilsa and to my business mentor, colleague, and sister friend, Dr. Caprice Hollins. You know, as I was preparing for this evening, you know, there was a moment where I was like, they really trusted me to ask anything that I wanted to ask. And then there was a part of me like, they raised me, right? And so whatever shows up tonight, you know, is really a direct result of being in a collective movement. And so I am so thankful that you all took the time out to be a part of such an important and critical conversation. And so please write down your questions, you know, let's go in, let's maximize your time. Let's make this an opportunity and an experience that you've never had before. And so I'm inviting you all as we start with the discussion for you to lean in and to know that there's no question that we can't handle and that we can't struggle together with. And so I'm going to go ahead. I want to just add a little bit more of context to my bio, you know, as that bio is being read, and it definitely represents part of my journey. I just want to just give a little bit as I lead in to my questioning, and I think that it will just provide you some insight as we go through this discussion tonight in how I show up and hold space for conversations like these. So thank you. As you know, my name is Karena Hooks. I am a Black, cisgender, queer woman from a biracial background. I'm a niece, a sister, a friend, educator, organizer, and abolitionist. See, this is what happens when you're nervous. And when I name it, I can let it go. An educator, organizer, abolitionist, created by two Southern blues and country musicians, a Black father from Mississippi, and a white mother from Tennessee. I am Willie Mack and Donna Mae's daughter. I'm here to both support and challenge this book and its authors. With that said, let's get started with my first question. My woundedness is a direct result of the intentional and unintentional harm caused by white women. What made you ask me to facilitate the discussion on your book? My first question for both of you.
Karena, that very fact is what had us ask you to be the person to ask us questions. The whole point of this book, of this 10 years of our relationship building, of us asking the question, what's up with white women, is earnest. And it means nothing if we're not willing to be in relationship with people that have real, true gut questions about our motivation. So the fact that we knew this about you and that you would help us be honest is exactly why we asked you, why I asked you.
Thank you, Tilman.
And Karena, so thank you for being here. And Tilman, this is just so exciting for me, this whole journey with you. And you know, when you ask that, I think about the fact that we have a genuine relationship and that we've had deep conversations. And so for Tilman and I both, there's an importance in us uplifting the work of people of color who've influenced the way that we think. And the fact that this book exists in the first place. And you are definitely one of those people. And so we wanted to, you know, continue to like have really deep, powerful conversations, the likes of which led to us writing this in the first place. And we know that you are somebody who will challenge us. And we know that you are somebody who has a personal relationship to what we're writing about when we're talking about white women.
Yeah. And I thank you, Ilsa. And, you know, when you just shared what you shared, it is the exact reason how I can come and show up with love and compassion, not only for the both of you, but for this book and everyone who is participating, is because I know both of you. And so you can only imagine when I get an ask to come and facilitate a conversation for white women, I'm like, whoa. And then after talking to you both, it was very clear as to why I was the right person at the right time due to our relationship. And it also is why I will challenge you. You know, as an educator, I often say that the places we work in and where we serve, that we need to be critical lovers of our institutions. And so thank you for just leaning in and allowing me to be able to engage with you in this way and in an authentic way around this topic. I want to both say congratulations to the book. Okay, I love the book. I'm up here like, you know, yes, get the book. And I'm gonna let both of you do the conversation around what people can be excited about in the book. And I also hope that we get to engage in an authentic, humanizing conversation as to what needs to be present as people start to dig into this book. And so I'm going to ask the most obvious question. This is not original. What's up with white women? Fill me in. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm guessing that you already have some thoughts about what's up with white women. I actually think, you know, like a lot of people of color will say, what's up with white women? No, really, like what is, but it's like, you already know, like you have some ideas, you have some answers. You know, we like, one of the things that I think about is just these patterns of behavior that Tilman and I have seen in the time, because we're racial justice facilitators, we actively have conversations with white women and many other people about racism. And so we have seen these patterns of behavior in those conversations over and over and over again, to the point where like, why is it that every time we give instructions for a breakout or table discussion, that there's some helpful Holly at the table who says, are we doing this right? Are we following the rules right? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? You know, and then there's a white woman, if that wasn't obvious. And then there's another white woman who says, yes, well, what they said the rules were, and what we're supposed to be doing is X, Y, and Z, and then turns to everybody at the table, often a multiracial group, to re-explain what everybody is supposed to be doing. And, you know, that's just one of the things that we think is up with white women, that we are situated in this dynamic where white men are making the rules and white women are enforcing them. White men are literally making decisions about women's bodies in this country, right? And then white women are enforcing rules on people of color, in particular, enforcing rules on the Black body in this country, in ways where sometimes we're acting out or overacting out our sense of loss of control, or feeling like, oh, well, you know what, that's the rule, wish I could do something about it, but I can't. And so we think that it's critical for us as white women to really look at that position in the buffer zone between white men and people of color, because we are the teachers, we are the nurses, we are the nonprofit employees and executive directors who are having much more direct contact with people of color often in our workplace than white men are. White men are very insulated by this intentional buffer zone that they've cultivated in our society.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
If you want to know what's up with me, I'm happy to go there too. But Tilman,
Oh, I'm coming. I'm coming.
Oh, I think that is about us, right?
Mhm.
Karena, this is where Ilsa and I are similar and different. So when I hear you ask me what's up with white women, the two things that came to mind were we think we're really good and we think we're innocent, or we act like both are true. And we depend on other people upholding that myth. And it's so deep in me. Ilsa, I hope it's okay if I include you in this. It's so deep in us that as we wrote this book, we let ourselves off the hook so often. We kind of made sure that people said, yes, we know white women are problematic, but we're really good. We're really innocent. We really don't mean to be mean and bad and cause trauma. And we got feedback from a wonderful friend of ours, Rachel Chapman, who said, stop it, go back through the book, see where you did this, find out where you're letting yourselves off the hook, and you change most of this. So when I think about what's up with white women and why I wanted to have this conversation with Ilsa and all these women, is the idea that our goodness and innocence is what we value most over other people and humanity is really problematic.
Mm. Thank you for that, Tilman. I know we're in a dance right now. Like it's a mood is what, folks would say. And I hope folks, as you're listening to the authors, and I know we're on Zoom, but you envision this as a living room conversation, because that's where it's going to quickly go. And Tilman, the reason I know it's a mood, what we're getting ready and what we are doing is because you just teed me up perfectly for the next question. And so I love when spirit moves like that. And so either, you or Ilsa or both, I'm curious as you think about the process of writing this book, which I know has been in the making for a very long time, and you're here with us now. I'm curious, how do you think that this book perpetuates white supremacy culture? And part two of that is, how do you think that it is aiming to disrupt and eradicate white supremacy culture?
So funny, I had a feeling you might ask a question like this, surprise. So here's what I think, and you and I have joked about this, Karena, a little bit. The title, What's Up with White Women? I think you said once, like, gosh, I'm going to get a glass of wine. I'm going to sit down. I'm going, yeah, what is up with white women? And then when you get into the book, it's there's stories. The stories are the heart of the book. But I also know that there's this framework within the book. And I know that for me was critically important because I needed to scaffold my understanding of how my white supremacy and my internalized sexism show up. But because it was written for me and Ilsa and the white women that we worked with and white women, by nature, that perpetuates white supremacy. And so I thought so much about why we did that. And I realized that when I grew up, I was taught two things. One, because I was white, it was okay for me to exploit people and exploit people of color. And at the same time, I was taught because I was female, white men could exploit me. And those two realities traumatized me and continue to. And this book is a way for me to figure out how that shows up in every part of my life. The scaffolding, the actual model of it is very white. And I wish I didn't need that, but I did in order to figure out what it looks like and how it sounds. I'd love to hear Ilsa, because I know that that was at the core of how I created this. And thank you for naming it.
Thank you. Ilsa.
So one thing that I think of, just going a little bit global or US context of white supremacy, is that when white people have a book published and are once again situated as the experts in racial justice, that will to some degree perpetuate white supremacy and and white supremacy culture, and that it will contribute in some way to white supremacy and white supremacy culture. And so we go into that aware of that fact and aware of the conversations with people of color who said, I don't want to have that conversation with one other white woman, or I can't have that conversation with a white woman. I won't be heard. I won't be believed. She'll become defensive or make light of my experience. And so that's the tension that we hold in even putting something out there that's a book. I think about the stories that Tilman and I told in the book, and Tilman kind of alluded to this earlier, where we protected our goodness in many ways. That when I can take my experience of causing real harm and reduce it to an anecdote, and some of those anecdotes I think are really inviting and illustrative for other white women to come into the conversation. And in a lot of them, I didn't go deeper. I didn't talk about the real, like, churning and burning and being torn apart, that anybody who's in my family who's watching right now will tell you all about. But and so I think that that's another way that white supremacy culture gets held up in the way that I tell my own story, is that I talk about it as if it is a pithy anecdote that hasn't contributed to depression, anxiety, all kinds of other issues in my life and at the same time, like, this is what we got to do to get free. So you ask the question, like, how is this dismantling white supremacy? Like, telling those stories is how I get free. I love that, like, Emma Goldman quote, it's not exact, but like, I don't want to be a part of your revolution if it doesn't have dancing. Like, being able to laugh at ourselves, being able to shine a light on what would otherwise create shame is actually the way that I deal with my depression. It's the way that I deal with my anxiety. It says, like, you're not going to hold me here. I'm going to get free. And we really do hope that this book invites other white women in particular into the conversation of what does it mean for us to get free, because when we are acting our internalized superiority within the context of a heteropatriarchal society, we are not free. And, Tilman and I love a good developmental model. And so we think that if we can envision how we might be, even if we've never actually been that ourselves, that gives us hope, and it steers us away from the guilt and the shame that becomes so paralyzing and debilitating, and the defensiveness that comes up for so many white women when we start to consider the fact that we are causing harm.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Ilsa, and I appreciate you naming that. And I'm also very present to how critical it is that white folks stay in these conversations. That, you know, it's an African proverb of that we can go fast alone, but further together. And so the discussions, the having these challenging conversations is so critical. I am watching time, and I also, I'm just rearranging 2 questions because what I'm feeling, what's coming up for me is just wanting to keep you both in that level of vulnerability and authenticity that you just shared. And then after this next question, I'm going to pick it back up and get the audience. And I hope that, you know, they're pumped up. But I want you to stay with the vulnerability, stay with the honesty, stay with the truth, unveil what we have yet been willing to unveil. And I have a question for both of you. And I don't represent everyone, but I can only imagine there are Black, Indigenous, people of color in this discussion with us in our living room. So my question is, what can those of us who love you hold you accountable for moving forward? What can the BIPOC communities hold both of you accountable for as you go to have these conversations moving forward?
Karena and Tilman, maybe you can jump in and answer that. I feel like the word accountability gets used a lot, and assume that we have a shared understanding of that. And so I'm curious, when you say that, what are you trying to drive at? What, or do you want us to just answer from our perspective of what that word means to us?
Absolutely. Because when you go out, and because the word is floating around,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm accountable. I want you to be accountable. I know with my work, right? I'm telling institutions, I'm telling people I'm working with, unless you want to develop a strategic plan that actually has accountability built in with consequences for those who do not, you know, who are not held accountable. And so you're moving in the world, not from my definition, but from your own. And so whatever it means to you, whatever you call it for you, what can I hold you both accountable for when it comes to my pain and my harm around this conversation is what I want to know.
So the invitation, I hope, and I hope it's true, is for Ilsa and me, the women in the book, but I'll talk for Ilsa and me, to be open enough and vulnerable enough. So when you share, or when we get a feel for how we are exploiting you or not seeing you or treating you in racist ways, that we hold ourselves responsible for our behavior. And I would love to tell you, I know what it means to be vulnerable, but I have created such a great little shell to survive sexism that I think I'm just now getting a peek at what it means to be vulnerable. One of the reasons that the model helps me is that it's aspirational. So that final phase of integration is this hope of like, could I live in alignment with my values? So Karena, when you give me feedback of like, what did you just do? Or just give me a look, or I know it in my bones that I don't need proof. I don't need you to even say anything. I can reflect and change because I know what's right, or I have a better feel for what's right. I think we should be expected to do that.
Thank you, Tilman. And I heard everything you said. I'm mindful of time. I'm mindful that we're giving what we're giving, and the juiciness is still, gonna come, which is really providing folks what they came here to get and getting them excited about a starting point and a supportive tool with the book. For the sake of time, I'm gonna ask this question. I'm gonna ask that you speak from yourself, like an I statement, that you're not speaking on behalf of you and Ilsa. And really what I'm looking for is a statement. And I'm gonna ask that you reserve the story behind the statement. There's one note I wrote here that I wanna put onto this, is you said when Karena's in the room, she gives me a look or this or that, and I just know. And my question is that the harm that's happening to Black and brown bodies is when there's not a Karena in the room. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to make the assumption that someone's going to be there to kind of give you that or have that relationship, truthfully, right? And so I just would like for you to say, you can hold me accountable for, fill in the blank for me in a sentence.
You can hold me accountable to be open and vulnerable and own my racism.
Thank you. Thank you. And then I'm going to invite Ilsa into that question as well.
Mm-hmm. And you can, I want to echo what Tilman said, that you can hold me accountable for staying in this work, for staying in this practice and continually growing and learning and being in relationship with folks of color all along the way, so that those conversations are always happening. And in the sessions that we do with white people, that's what I thought of, Karena, when you said, there's not always going to be a Karena in the room. There's lots of times when Tilman and I are getting together with white women, and you don't know what's happening in there, right? And so I think it's that we can be held accountable, we can be held responsible for pushing white women, for challenging white women in the same way that we push and challenge ourselves, which means with love and respect and dignity, that not just dignity for white folks, dignity for all of our shared humanity.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask everyone to take a pause, breathe, wiggle around. I would love to tell you that was the hardest part for me anyway. And I don't know what the audience is going to is going to submit. So at least for me. So thank you both. Thank you both for that. And I love what you said, Ilsa, because, yes, that solidarity in the room with BIPOC folks and having our co-conspirators is critical. And I'm more concerned about what people are saying when we're not there, because we're feeling the results of it. Right. And so thank you for letting me stretch, with both of you, to be vulnerable enough myself to ask the question that comes up for me as it comes up for me, without code switching, without saying, well, how can I frame this so white people can understand it? I didn't have to do any of that because we have the relationship. And so I also want to highlight the importance of centering relationships. Right. And so thank you both so much. And so I am curious, what are you excited to share about your book with folks? I want everybody to be pumped up like I'm pumped up. Tell me, I'd love to hear from both of you, and then we'll start to move towards getting to the Q&A.
Yeah. I mean, I get giddy when I think about it. And I am so excited. I'm so excited for the possibility to have more conversations with white women, like the one that we had this morning, where we're like, we just shared something like the buffer zone, and white women are like, oh my gosh, mind blown, And I'm not saying that necessarily leads to change. I think Shakti Butler, who wrote our foreword, said at one point, everybody leaves my workshop saying their life's changed and everything's different. And then they just go out and continue the same patterns that they've learned, So this is a lifetime of learning, which means that we got a lot of unlearning to do. But I'm excited for the number of people that we get to engage because of this book, who are interested in doing that unlearning and interested in committing themselves to unlearning and then putting in new practices. So for me, that's just the most exciting thing. I have been getting some texts and messages from white women friends of mine that you know who you are, getting me so excited. And I said to I think I said to Tilman, I said, I don't know, or maybe it was somebody who sent me one. I don't know when I'm going to start to believe, the possibility that this could make the change that we're hoping to see in a couple of people's lives, in a few people's lives, or maybe more than that. But these messages that we're already starting to hear, that white women are seeing themselves, that they're having to set the book down for a while and come back to it, that I had to step away for a minute, and that it was challenging. And I'm all excited about all that. Tilman, what are you excited about?
Okay, we know if the two of us, one of us is not big in promotion and social media, all of that. Guess which one it is. And the excitement is so deep in my heart. The very first time that Ilsa, MG, and I came together to create this model, I felt hope. I felt hope in our relationship and our collective knowledge in constructing knowledge. And so I feel a hope that I'm going to expand and grow with a larger community and with brilliant, amazing people. And Karena, even though it takes me a long time to answer the questions, I am so excited about the discomfort. I mean, conversations like this, especially in public, I would not normally sign up for them. And by writing this book, I signed up for it. And I feel like that's just good for all of us.
Yes. And I mean, I'm grateful to be modeling, right? Because these are real questions, real conversations. The stakes are high.
Yeah.
Right. And we have to jump in even when I wouldn't say even when we're experiencing discomfort. I would say especially when you're experiencing discomfort.
Yes.
And I also want to note to folks that wherever you're at in entering into these conversations, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And so as you engage in these conversations, to know that, oftentimes folks will look at those of us facilitating as if, we are superhuman, superpowers, right? And it's like we're struggling and unraveling and unlearning and on a mission to deepen, to disrupt, to forward our healing that cannot be missed. These conversations combined with an acknowledgement and an honesty that we all have some healing to do around race and racism, how we've showed up, how we've not shown up, combined with this book, I know is the world that I dream about. I was going to say when I go to sleep at night, but I have daydreams too. Right. So thank you. Thank you both for that. I'm looking at time. And you know what? Time's such a social construct, but that's a whole nother conversation. Before I open the Q&A up, because I love for people to get what they came for, right? And to be okay with folks getting what they came for, knowing that they are going to leave with your book and that they'll be able to be in it. We're around, we're one email or phone call away to continue to support you. And so before I transition to see where folks are at and what they're wanting to ask, is there anything else you want to offer or give to folks as they're entering on a continuum, right, of awareness and their journey? Any words you want to give as they enter into the work that you both so beautifully created, along with, I know, your loved ones and support team as well?
I would say that even though the cover might not lead you to believe such, and the title might not lead you to believe such, we wrote this book as a love letter to our white sisters and white people who were socialized into female gender norms. And I want you to know, my white sisters, my white siblings, that you can get wrecked and you can come back and you're going to be okay. And don't use that as an excuse to not continue to engage this work.
Thank you.
Karena, I love what Ilsa said. That I love
ditto?
Yeah, ditto.
Okay, all
it's
right.
a competition. Tilman and I are going to try to outdo each other because that's what white women do. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting questions from the audience. And so first question we have, and it's just whoever feels compelled or called to answer it. And if both of you have something to add, please feel free to. So the question coming in, I'm realizing that I did all the white women things in a meeting earlier this year, and I'm extremely embarrassed. I apologize to the Black meeting participants recently, but it seems so small for the size of my embarrassment. Is there a more effective way to apologize?
I mean, I'm right there with you. On any given day, time, place, I stepping in. And this is what Ilsa and I talk about and help each other out with all the time, and our white siblings. A couple of things when I hear this question. So I'm not going to answer it directly because wouldn't it be great if I knew if there was a perfect, effective way? But maybe a couple things I've thought about when I've been in this position. The embarrassment. What's the source of it? Is it that I think I should be perfect? Is it that I think I should be able to know better? If, what kind of internalized sexism is going on there? So just for me to grapple with. And then the apologizing to people of color that we've hurt is a very, it takes a lot of heart, and I was going to say skill, but I think what it takes is genuine vulnerability. And usually when I'm in this space, I'm my least vulnerable. So I pretend I'm vulnerable, but I'm not. And so I would say, I think I would make my apology, hope that it's accepted, and then know I have no control over it, and learn and move on.
Yeah. Well, so you have anything to add to that?
As a matter of fact, I do. Tilman said a lot of what I was thinking. When we're focused on our embarrassment and was the apology big enough, is that because I'm trying to control the story that other people have of me because of the embarrassment that I feel, and then centering myself in that story rather than centering the needs of your Black colleague? And so that would be the question that I'd be wondering about. I have apologized before for something that I did and never heard back, right? And the apology was to live into my own integrity and my own belief in justice and my own belief in the amends that I need to make for my mistakes. And it is in no way dependent on whether or not the person even accepts my apology or responds in any way. I had somebody recently tell me that a woman of color recently sent me a private email saying that that a white colleague had done an injury, caused an injury, and then hadn't apologized to her because she had heard somewhere in a training that you're not supposed to apologize to a person of color, to like put it on them to tell you whether or not you're forgiven. And so because she was trying to follow the rules of anti-racism, which we talk about are fake in our projection stage in the book, she failed to live into the genuine relationship with her colleague. And her colleague was more wounded by that than the apology could have possibly caused.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just to make a quick comment around apologies. I don't speak for everyone. I speak for a lot folks when I say this. I'll speak for myself with this statement. Sorry doesn't cut it for me. But your action does. So I don't want to know what you're saying in the sense of like, I'm sorry, because we've been hit all day with it, like all day, every day of our life and our existence. Like our armor, even if we wanted it to be soft, has to be tough to wake up every day. And so I thank you, because Tilman, you led Ilsa into it. And then I was thinking, Ilsa's right. There are some folks that actually want an apology. So I'm just going to bridge those two things real quick. I say you want to acknowledge the harm you've done, right? And if it leads into an apology and that feels authentic for you, great, give it and make a recommitment to the person. So that's like, what am I going to do going forward based on what I learned on the backs of your holistic, spiritual, mental, physical health, right? And so what the note I wrote down here is that you want to reflect, right? And you want to forgive yourself. You're going to have to love yourself through it. Ease, gentleness, compassion, You didn't create it, but you inherited it. We all did, right? And then what is the action plan going forward? So it's, I guess the point I want to make is not enough to just say sorry, right? But what are you going to do with the harm that was done? I'm going to ask this question. I have the second question coming up. And so I'm going to ask it, but I'm going to say, Ilsa and Tilman, if it's okay, if we could potentially maybe shorten them so we could get maybe 3 or 4 more questions out there.
Sure.
That's a selfish request. I love to know what people want to know. Okay. Sorry, they popped in a little. Okay, there we go. I'm a middle-aged, progressive white woman with a commitment to anti-racism. I struggle every day to desegregate my life. What ideas can you share about addressing this issue in Seattle?
I mean, are you like the whole way that our housing is set up, and like Karena just said so beautifully, the system that we've inherited of institutional racism means that most of us are living in segregated communities in Seattle that are getting more and more segregated. So are you going to racial justice struggles? Are you showing up in racial justice work? Are you going to community events that are open invitation to white folks to be a part of that? You know, like, how are you finding yourself in intentional communities that are working against racism and are aligned with your progressive values, even if that's not the community that you live in?
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead to the next question. And so I'm going to ask you all just to, you know, do your little head nod. Who's taking it, okay? The questions are so good. So like, you know, so white supremacy lives in me too. I have a sense of urgency of getting these questions. So someone says, I love the idea that you can get wrecked and be okay and continue to do good work. I started a group for white people a little over 2 years ago in the South Sound to provide a place for us to learn and grow and support each other and connect, and engage in our communities in anti-racist ways. I continue to fumble and sometimes I get it right. And I'm always looking for resources and people and real life experiences to teach me how to do better. If there's one concept you'd have someone like me not miss in your book, what would it be? Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you for asking that. I love that last part.
That is so good. Oh, this will be fun just to see if it's the same concept that Ilsa and I come up with. There are several, but the one that first came to mind is the idea that we as white women have bought into this white supremacist patriarchal bargain. And so the idea that we can be exploited by white men and then turn around and exploit people of color is critical to this intersection. And that is that is the key piece throughout the book.
Thank you. Ilsa?
Oh, I was just going to let Tilman respond to that one.
No, because, you know, so this is the thing. If you're like, yep, then cool. But if there's a part for you that you would love, you know, the town hall family watching not to miss, I would just love for you to briefly tell them what that is for you.
I think I just go back to this, like this model of development, and really hold ourselves lightly as we see our own development. That I love yesterday, Ilsa. She did some really racist shit. Excuse me, town hall. Today, Ilsa is continuing to do some racist stuff. And so for me, that's like keeps us from getting caught in our shame and our guilt when we do mess up. And that, and I was in a white caucus group one time, and we had that mantra, like you'll mess up and you'll mess up again and you will mess up again. And that another key thing is just like, how do we then envision and have some role models and examples of what it does look like with white women who are further along. And there are lots, there's Anne Braden, there's Peggy McIntosh, who we talked to in our book, there's lots of, Suzanne Farr, there's lots of white women who've been engaged in this work and struggling with these same questions for a long time. And I feel like that's a part of our history that we're not taught in schools in much the way that the true history of racism is not taught in our schools.
Mm-hmm. I like to often say that the message is actually in the messiness.
Mm-hmm.
And so our social conditioning of keeping everything real tidy and on task, why we haven't gotten the message. And so get messy.
Yeah.
Try on some new things, flex some new muscles. I can tell, well, in my opinion, I can say this. Please do everything different than that, which was done to us. Let's make some new, openings or ahas, but let's not continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. And then wonder why we don't have different results. Okay, I'm gonna slide this one in here. Let's see. Do you have a favorite line or short passage from your book? Please share.
Cute. Tilman, did you bookmark anything before?
Well, here's the thing. Luckily, I saw that question, and there are many, obviously, because we have stories of these brilliant, courageous women that were in this with us. But there is one quote that we use in our workshops to end them often by one of our focus group members, Terry Yaffe. And we love this quote because it just kind of sums up how we feel we want to be. It says, trying to be helpful can be such an irritation to other people that perhaps in those moments of integration, we're all truly not doing any harm. Wait, let me redo that. Trying to be helpful can be such an irritation to other people that perhaps in those moments of integration, we are all truly not doing any harm. People get a break from us, or we get a break from ourselves, and there's a lot of relief in that. So just the idea of just breathe, just be present, just be engaged. And this is just one quote that there's so many amazing quotes that kept us going and that we really wanted to have in the book, that this is just a tiny flavor of that.
Mm-hmm. So that gave me enough time to find something.
Keep it real, Ilsa.
I turned to the White Women's Tears chapter because there's a couple of things in there. Like Tilman, first of all, thank you to all of our focus group participants and to everybody who read the book and gave us critical feedback. To Shakti, who wrote the foreword, to just like all the voices that really bring this to life. In the chapter on White Women's Tears, we talk, or I share a story about being in a workplace where a woman of color started to cry, and a white man said, "Oh, can I give you a hug?" And I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I interrupted it because you're putting her in an impossible position. Does she say, "No, you can't give me a hug," and then make it, make you feel awkward about offering that? Does she say yes when she doesn't really want the hug because she has to appease a white man in the workplace? If she says no, then she's seen as being callous and uncaring. And, so there's just this bind that we often put people of color in. And so when we talked we wrote a little bit about people of color's tears and why it is that we see white women crying more than we see any other population crying. And we said it may then be easier for people of color to not risk sharing their woundedness around racism when in those moments where they are re-experiencing trauma, they then are expected to address or take care of white people's comfort.
I'm going to ask everyone, thank you, Ilsa, for that. And I'm going to ask folks to just pause. Notice where you feel it in your body and breathe. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. I was recently talking to someone that I cherish and admire, who is white. And I made the comment, I'm just gonna sum up or wrap up, Ilsa, what you had just said with this. I said, when I go into a conversation, actually, let me back up one second. One of the things I love and appreciate about you both is you don't take up too much space for me. I'll speak for myself. And so white folks have a tendency to center themselves all the time and to take up all the space. And what I was sharing was that when we're holding on to our mask, right? I'm a good white person type deal. I feel it. You don't have to say anything. I feel it energetically. And I'm here to tell all of you, we feel it through Zoom too. We see it and we feel it. It locks me down as a Black woman to be able to be fully expressed authentically in your presence. And one of the things that you both have modeled so beautifully to me in real life, in real time, and through this book, and tonight at this town hall discussion, is that when you drop the mask and show up truthfully, honestly, even if it's ugly, like especially if it's ugly, all of our stuff is ugly, right? We all got some ugly stuff when it comes to race and racism. No secret, no one's immune to it. Is that when you show up in the way that you have shown up, fully expressed yourself, and then I'm allowed to also be fully expressed, it's a win-win. Mm-hmm. We all win. Oftentimes white folks will say, well, they don't necessarily see the loss in missing out in that relationship in their life, right? That's where we have white folks say, well, what is my culture? Mm-hmm. Where you're looking for it out there when it's in you. But if you don't have access to it yet, then it's a lose-lose for us. Mm-hmm. And that's where, I'm here in a large part because my healing and liberation is tied to the healing and liberation of white people. My family, my mother, you all are my family. I cannot heal in isolation. Yes, I have my community. And yet, this is a collective movement that needs to take place. It's first an individual one. Please don't go into collective movement spaces if you have not done your individual work. It causes more harm. It's an individual movement. It's a collective movement. And I'm going to say my thank yous, and then I'm going to ask Ilsa and Tilman if they have any final words as we get ready to wrap up. I'm going to let you all know because I'm like fired up. 1 hour just goes. I'm like, all right, let me pop some popcorn. I'm ready. I would stay here all night to have truthful, authentic, open conversation, and for each of us to be living in our full truths. And so I just want to say that the conversation is picking up, right? And so as you get ready to end and go into your evenings, it doesn't have to stop here. And we really hope that it doesn't stop here. And so oftentimes when I end a conversation where it's like, ooh, this was the truth, give me more of that. You know, it's like, well, where am I going to get that next? Or when am I going to get that next? And I know that Ilsa and Tilman are available and willing at any time to engage, support, whether it's you as an individual or your organizations. As I get ready to wrap up my time in this process, Town Hall family, thank you. The work you're putting into it inspires me to continue to engage in this work. It inspires me to, and I'm just going to keep it real for 1 second. This book has had me a week in the depths of the most profound healing that I've ever done around whiteness. And so I am, when I say I'm grateful, I am super, super grateful. I've described this week as a rebirth. And I just want to also let you know, for anyone that leaves here saying, well, I need more, it's not about my organization. If I have an individual responsibility, I just want to offer that at Hooks Global, we are working with folks for their individual liberation. So wherever you feel stuck in this conversation, it's okay. Act, right? And so if you feel like you need personal coaching, please don't hesitate. My partnership with Cultures Connecting, Dr. Caprice Hollins, Ilsa, Tilman, we're all at this together collectively. And so it's hooksglobal.com if you're looking for more information. Thank you, Ilsa. Thank you, Tilman. I'm excited about my rebirth through this process. And if this book had nothing inside of it and just had people engaging around this question, job well done. Job well done. So I'm going to turn it over for you both to have the final. And then I know, Town Hall family, we want more. We want more. We need more collective healing. Yes.
Karena, you know, these conversations are rare, and I don't realize just how much I hunger for real conversation like this until I'm in it. And then I'm like, oh, I've been so hungry. I've been starving and I didn't know it, right? I mean, we have conversations, business planning, those kinds of conversations, but like, when my business partner, and I'll give her a shout out to Dr. Caprice Hollins, and I are just on the phone and we're both having a glass of wine and we're having those deep conversations with one another. That's what I hunger for. And that's what I think a lot of us are hungry for. And so thank you, Karena and Hooks Global. We also wanted to say that if you do want to connect with Tilman and I, we're doing a series of workshops. We have one next week that has some space. It's a 2 half-day intensive. And we also have a lunch and learn series coming up. So you can find out more at culturesconnecting.com. And proceeds from our book are benefiting 2 organizations, and we really want to uplift their work. And we want you to also donate to these organizations. And so we're going to be sharing some slides now that have QR codes that you can scan and check out. Pseudo for Solidarity, amazing organization, and the Unspoken Truths. And Tilman, why don't we just segue and you just say a little bit about the organizations while we've got those slides up.
Okay.
And then your thanks.
First off, Karena, thank you with all of my heart. Thank you for taking the risk to be here, to be in conversation with us. I love you. Thank you. This is about relationships, and this book is an imperfect act of love. And so I hope that everybody who reads it, who lets it come into their lives, that it is helpful and that it is hopefully transformational in whatever way that means to you. So the two groups that we are supporting and also in partnership with, the Unspoken Truths American History Museum with Delbert Richardson is a phenomenal organization. They are going to have a space at the King Station Gallery starting in November. It's going to be there for 3 months. It's going to be the longest period of time the museum will be in one place. Please support Mr. Richardson and the museum. And then Suru for Solidarity is an organization, a national organization founded by and led by Japanese Americans whose families and histories were influenced by the unlawful incarceration during World War II. And they are working on several things. One, to close the camps at the border that are currently still open. Please, let's not forget that. And they're also working to build cross cultural solidarity lines, Black Lives Matter, any with other people of color, so that white supremacy does not divide us. And so please, we're honored that they're willing to partner with us, and we hope that you look into them and support them.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much. Thanks to everyone for being here.
It took me a second there. I want to thank you all so much on behalf of Town Hall. This has been such an amazing space to be in. I am so impressed with all of you to be able to create this via this, Zoom call. I think that's very challenging, and I really commend you for being able to be so vulnerable with all of us and to be so honest. I wanted to just mention that we will have Ilsa and Tilman back at Town Hall in November. That's going to be on November 20th. That is a 3-hour workshop. So if you're interested in that, look that up on our website, and you can be a part of this conversation again. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks to the audience for your questions. If you're interested in purchasing a copy of the book, I encourage you to use the link in the chat that's going to take you over to Elliott Bay, so we can just support a local store tonight. And, I hope that we are able to see you all in person someday soon. But until then, thank you so much for all your work. And and I just wish you the best, and we'll see you again.
Thanks.
Give your loved ones and people you know the gift of this book, especially if you have a hard time accessing the conversation with them. Thank you. Thank you, Town Hall.
Thank you.